And we're leaving that report slightly early just to take you live to Ankara because the Turkish Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, addressing parliamentarians, giving us the latest government thinking out of Ankara about the events of Tuesday.
Our history regarding our brothers in Syria. We have to work for them to get freedom. We belong with them to the same nation. We are relatives, and we need not to fight according to foreign agenda. We have to see the scenarios being done in Afghanistan. They are the same scenarios with the different side being now played in Syria. We know ISIL is only an international game, an international scenario, and they want it to be a tool for the Islamophobia and for racism against Muslims in Syria. In the name of, or under the name of fighting ISIL, they need to hit everyone except ISIL. They hit the moderate groups who fight the Syrian regime. This is what's going on in Syria. Today, I'd like to talk to you about ISIL. I need to be very open and very frank. There are some powers who try to restore things in order to use ISIL for a designation of the whole area. I'm saying clearly again, this ISIL could not be fought by anyone except Turkey. Turkey has declared ISIL a terrorist organization since 2005 when it has a different name. In 2013, when it called itself ISIL, we declared that it is a terrorist organization and we fought it since then. That's why the Turkish position regarding ISIL is quite clear. We will never allow anyone to interrogate us when it comes to our position regarding ISIL. No one has the right to accuse Turkey of being cooperating with or of not fighting ISIL, whether these people are from inside or the outside. I am, in my capacity as a president, and when I was the prime minister, I said, and I will say, that we are really hit by ISIL. And in Nida, Shalorfa, Ankara, Diyarbakir, Gaziantep, in all these places, ISIL has committed terrorist actions in Turkey. And up to the moment, we have lost 140 Turkish citizens. They have been killed, and 7 security people have also been killed. Those who work for Daesh tried to attack us on our borders. We have fought ISIL. We have fought ISIL continuously, and we have arrested around 3,000 people who were working with ISIL under its old name or under the current name ISIL. Also, we have arrested so many weapons, and we have arrested a lot of things that belong to this ISIL organization. We have prevented 27,000 foreigners from coming in Turkey under the concept of being affiliated to ISIL. We have expelled so many foreigners from our countries who were trying to cross our country to go to ISIL and join ISIL. We have adopted so many measures in order to prevent the smuggling of oil by Daesh to Turkey, and we have arrested 79 million liters of oil that they have tried to take it into Turkey. We fight ISIL. We militarily and economically fighting ISIL. In Syria, some of them who said they are fighting ISIL, they are only fighting the moderate opposition in Syria. I'm telling the people and I'm telling the world, dear brothers, in Latakia, in northern Latakia, in Bayr Bujaka, where the Turkmen live, there is no single ISIL men or man living in these places. The operations being run now or being done now using the aircraft during the last month and a half have led to the killing of 300 Turkmen from Bujra. And I feel sorry to say that our brothers in Bujra are trying to come to Turkey. Some of them have arrived to the camps, but some others say we will be martyrs, we will lose our life on our land and our territories. This morning, I spoke to the crisis officials, and the director of them told me that the Turkmen refused to come to Turkey or refused to resort to Turkey. They only said we need humanitarian aid to stay on our land and to defend their land. As you know, 2 trucks carrying human aids have been bombarded and shelled. 3 people were killed and 3 others were wounded. Yes, I'm telling you, the trucks were carrying humanitarian aid. And on the other hand, they said to the world, they claim that they are fighting ISIL. You are not doing that. Sorry, you're not doing that. You are only trying to evacuate the northern of Latakia, and you work hand in hand with the Syrian regime to kill the Turkmen, the citizen Syrians, the Turkmen. You, under the name and the title of fighting ISIL, you are supporting the other terrorist organizations. But we in Turkey are quite determined to fight ISIL and to fight all the other terrorist organizations. We also fight the Syrian regime that terrorizes the Syrian people. Al-Assad regime is the biggest supporter of ISIL. They accuse Turkey of taking oil or petrol from ISIL. Some officials say that. This is shame. Shame on them. Turkey now gets oil and gas from very well-known places. We import natural gas from Russia. We're the biggest importer of the Russian gas, and we also import from Iran, from Azerbaijan, from northern Iraq. From Algeria also we import gas, also from Qatar. Very well-known places to buy the natural gas from. Those who claim that we took oil from ISIL have to prove that. They have to prove that. Otherwise, they are liars. They are not telling the truth.
DAEŞ çıkardığı petrolü
النفط الذي تستخرجها داعش تبيعها
The oil of Daesh is sold to Assad. Go and ask the Assad regime, where did you get your oil from? And ask Assad, where did you get your money from? It is known. We do not want, at this particular point of time, to say more, but those who support Daesh with ISIL, support ISIL with money and weapons, are from the countries who support Daesh. On top of these countries, comes the Assad regime. But when it comes to the opposition, that is the legal representative of the Syrian people, and that is supported by 120 countries, such opposition should not be bombarded or shelled. This moderate opposition is always there fighting the Assad regime, the tyranny in Syria, who killed thousands and thousands of the Syrian people. Those who support Assad will never be able to justify what they have done when it comes to the historians and when it comes to history. How could you support Al-Assad regime? Those who support Al-Assad regime has no even right to talk about human rights. They cannot talk about human rights. They cannot talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have stood against them. That's why they accused us. We will never be with the tyranny. We will be always against them, against injustice everywhere.
Şunu hiç kimse unutmasın. Allah razı olsun. Ülkemiz
إياكم أن تنسوا
Don't forget, don't ever forget that Turkey has borders with Syria, 910 kilometers borders with Syria. With Iraq, we have 380 kilometers, our borders with Iraq. And those who live on both sides of borders are friends and are relatives for thousands of years. Halab, Aleppo, Gaziantep, Ghurfa and Raqqa, Mardin and Al-Hasaka. They are not very far away cities. They are cities that complement each other. And the people, those who live on the borders in different parts, when you tell them that these borders will never differentiate them, these borders mean nothing.
Al Jazeera, we're live for you this hour in Ankara and also in London. We'll get to London in just a second because the Turkish Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, there on the left of your screen, addressing parliamentarians, recapping that the Turkish position is quite clear. No one can dictate to the government in Ankara. What you're looking at simultaneously on the right-hand side of your screen, the British Prime Minister David Cameron making the case to parliamentarians in the Palace of Westminster as to why he believes that British RAF fighter planes should be allowed, following a parliamentary vote as early as next week, to join the air campaign in the airspace above Syria. Mr. Erdogan now kind of stating the kind of thing that we've heard a lot over the past month or so, saying we've arrested 3,000 people, we've prevented foreigners from coming into our country. He was also talking about how they have been in some form of communication with Turkmen on the ground across the border in Syria. That was one of the subtexts to the events of Tuesday, because there is a Turkmen population on the ground on the Turkish side of the border, and they look very much to their brethren on the Syrian side of the border. So that was something we had to begin to fold into our thinking as a potential consequence of what happened when that Russian fighter plane was taken out the skies by Turkish aircraft on Tuesday afternoon local time. Mr. Cameron answering questions there from opposition MPs inside the House of Commons. He was saying, and he said in the past 2 hours, just restating his case as well, that an Islamic State caliphate, to quote directly from the Prime Minister, makes the UK less safe. He was also wrapping up, just to be completely clear, he was wrapping up what he wants under the UN resolution. And he's also been talking and nudging the world's thinking towards this idea that there will never be, or there will not be, certainly for the immediate or medium-term future, Allied forces on the ground. He wants to use Iraqi forces and Kurdish Peshmerga. All this, of course, underpinned by the fact that the French President, Francois Hollande, en route as we speak from Paris to Moscow, because he's going to be talking to the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, to see how far Mr. Putin is prepared to go and to see how much of an overlap there is within their conflicting interests. as how they want to see the situation in Syria develop and unfold. Let's take you back now to Ankara.
Al-Assad regime is the one to be blamed. Al-Assad regime is the one to be blamed for everything, for all the incidents. Those who accuse us have to stop. Turkey cannot be blamed for Al-Assad practices. And some of these countries say the relations between Turkey and Al-Assad are good. This is completely wrong. They said Erdogan and Al-Assad have met on the level of the two families. This is why they said that. Let me tell you something. Al-Assad at that time has never committed such crimes. But now when he committed the crimes, we have adopted another different situation towards him or against him. Why they cannot go back to the moderate point? Because the multi-party system doesn't at all attract Al-Assad regime. The Arab Spring that started in Tunisia, then moved to Egypt and Syria, these waves of revolutions, the Arab Spring has really upset the regimes in this country. That's why we cannot at all be tolerable. We cannot tolerate what has been done by ISIL. The PKK and other organizations, Boko Haram and the youth organizations, these organizations are terrorist organizations and are committing crimes that can never be forgiven. They have caused the damage. They have caused the damage. These organizations, on top of them, ISIL, are really a black point, and they hate Islam more than any other organization. That's why no difference between the terrorists of these organizations and the terrorists of the regime in Syria. We have suffered in Turkey from terrorism, like France. France has suffered from terrorism, and we have also suffered in Suruj and Antab and Ankara from the terrorist operations. I have spoken about that in so many occasions, and I need to stress that civilians have been killed during these operations, and we are waiting for a similar position from the international public opinion, because the recent incident in Hatay can be included in this context. The recent operations was not against Russia in particular. We, as a country that is suffering from the terrorist operations and the military operations in Syria, we need to say that the Russian side has to be reminded, because we have reminded them so many times there is no need to violate our airspace. We have behaved within the warnings that were given to the Russians. They have violated our airspace for more than 3 or 4 times, and we have warned them, but it's the aircraft violated our airspace. So 2 Turkish aircraft have sent them like 10 warnings for, and these warnings are recorded. And we have, the armed forces have these warnings. And following this incident, we knew the identity of the 2 planes. But I need you to make sure that we were very sad because of this incident, because we seek and we are very keen not to kill anyone, and we are very keen to avoid any bloodshed. That's why the technical clarifications have been submitted by the Turkish armed forces and have been circulated to all the concerned parties, the parties concerned, but the Russians made some other announcements. And we follow these statements, we follow these announcements. We have strategic partnership with the Russians. We have consultative council with the Russian side. And this is not enough. We need more coordination. We need more coordination in this regard, so as to work for the benefit of everyone. This Russian announcements really upset us, but the aircraft that has violated our airspace despite the warnings has also upset us. This has been taking place for more than 3 or 4 times, and it is now related to our national security. You know our relations, our good relations with Syria. We want to bring peace and security to this region, but the Syrian Russian has nothing to do and has nothing to claim about violating our airspace. Now I want to say that the laws and the rules have to be followed. We reject such violations, and the area from Jarablus to the west of Syria needs to be safe and to be secured and to be cleaned from all the terrorist organizations, and on top of them comes ISIL. We also need an international legality in order to support the Syrian opposition, the military Syrian opposition that aims at toppling al-Assad regime. The Syrian opposition still needs the international support, and I'm saying this again and again. The Turkmen in Bayr-Bujark are opposition groups, opposition moderate groups. We support them. We will continue our support to them because they live in injustice. They own this region. They are our brothers. We need not any military intervention against any country, but we need everyone to respect our sovereignty and to deal with our sovereignty with all care. The world now has accepted our right in this incident, but we need not to expand the sequences of this incident to hit our economic relations. If we are in a similar situation, we will do the same. In this regard, in this connection, the country that has violated our airspace has to ask itself, why should we have done that and we should not do that again? As you know, on the 1st of November, dear brothers, we have seen very important elections, and the result of September were really not doing very well with our national security. Some people say the politicians in this country are trying to Islamize Turkey. Is anyone allowed to accuse us of this, me or the government or whoever? Do we need to Islamize Turkey? 99% of the Turks are Muslims. So what do you mean by Islamization of Turkey? How could use such a word or such a term? Can I say to the Russians, for example, the Russian regime is trying to Christianize Russia? There are 30 million Muslims in Russia. Can anyone say that the Russian regime is trying to do that? I am a Muslim. 99% of the Turkish people are Muslims. So what Islamization do you mean? What Islamization do you talk about? We only do our job. We only do our job. But look to that very wrong expression. And the attack on our consulates and embassies and the destruction of our consulate windows, we cannot accept that. We do not like that. We have always said that we will never allow any terrorism or terrorists. In Turkey, we have prevented terrorists from committing their crimes. That's why we will never accept this to be hit or for our embassies or consulate to be hit. Let me say that we have strategic partnership with Russia, but there is someone who threatens us that he or she or that country will stop our mutual or joint ventures. They will stop the partnership with us. Is it something to be accepted? You have to ask ourselves as politicians and as military people, where are your mistakes? Then come and talk to us. You have to ask yourself, you have to prevent what has happened before, and then come and talk to us. If you want to talk emotionally, then it's up to you. This is not accepted. Few days ago, we were in Italy together. The delegations have met. The delegations talk face to face. We have spoken so many times regarding Syria. And now, after all this, you come and threaten us. This is not accepted at all. And let me tell you that Mr. Ahmed Davutoglu, the chairman of our party, has been asked to form the new cabinet, the new government of Turkey. And a few days ago, we accepted the government or the cabinet proposed by Ahmed Davutoglu. And on Saturday, the program, the agenda of the new government has been declared. Next Monday, there will be a vote for this government, which means that we have seen 6 months of non-stability, if I could say, but on Monday we will be having a government supported by 49% of the people in elections that have been witnessed the vote of a lot and millions of Turkish. Once again, I hope these elections, the results of these elections will be for the benefit of our country and our people. In March 2014, Turkey has suffered from 4 successive elections, and despite the economic impact because of these elections, and we can say that the interests have been, in a way, affected, and
Mr. Erdogan there carrying on to talk about a list of items that he obviously feels the need to communicate his central message on disparate areas of his policy and his administration at the moment to parliamentarians. There he was saying how, and a direct quote from Mr. Erdogan, he said, ISIL hates Islam. He then went on to talk about the issues of Tuesday when those Turkish fighter planes downed that Russian Sukhoi 24. He said the Russians violated our airspace. He confirmed again and restated again there were 10 warnings issued to the Russian flight crew in a space of 5 minutes. He said we feel very sad because of that incident. He also said, however, rules had to be followed. He said international guarantees, that's what he's looking for as well, to support the Syrian opposition. And again, using a direct quote from Mr. Erdogan, because we are aware that there is such a sensitivity surrounding the language that broadcasters use when it comes to what's going on in Syria. He said that ISIL is trying to Islamize Turkey. So that's the latest from Mr. Erdogan, his thinking on what's going on in Syria, the aftermath of that Russian aircraft being downed, and now he's just begun to talk about the run-up to the very recent elections that put him back into office in Turkey.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.